The Ice Age on Earth. People send an expedition to the nearest uncontaminated star to find out how to prevent the end of the world. Only one astronaut, who has lost his memory, reaches the final destination alive, and such films keep you on edge until the last minute. The main thing is to watch them where nothing distracts. More, they reproduce in the given favorable atmosphere of Venus. After this discovery, Grace is offered a ride on a fighter jet. It is the fastest way to reach the aircraft carrier in the ocean, where the headquarters of Eva and the group studying the astrophages is located. There, the teacher learns that the problem is broader than he thought. In the galaxy, all stars except Tau Ceti are affected by astrophages and are slowly fading. Soon there will be more dim stars in the sky than at the New Year's blue light. To save humanity from inevitable extinction, people are preparing the Project Hail Mary, an expedition to the only uninfected star to find a way to get rid of the cosmic parasites on site. Scientists want to use the astrophages by reproducing them in laboratory conditions. The energy they release is the best type of fuel, but even so, the flight will be one way. The ship won't have enough fuel to return. The mission's task will be to find a solution to the problem and send the ready solution back to Earth with several probes. But the crew itself will remain forever in space and in the memory of grateful descendants. Grace is part of the expedition, and when the starship Ave Maria reaches its final destination, the engines along with the gravity system are turned off, floating in weightlessness. The astronaut sees through the porthole the shining Petrov line near the exoplanet Tau Ceti. But what is even more interesting, the onboard computer detects another object nearby, a strange structure resembling an alien spacecraft. Attempts to distance from the mysterious device in the vacuum were unsuccessful. The alien contraption meticulously mirrors all the maneuvers of the Ave Maria. When Grace realized that escaping wouldn't work, his interstellar travel colleague made contact using a mechanical manipulator and tossed a small object in his direction, fearing it was a bomb. The teacher mentally says goodbye to the mission and the habit of living, but the elongated thing, after hitting the side, flies further away. The unknown repeats the throwing maneuver, forcing Grace to put on a spacesuit and go out into open space to intercept the transmission. With difficulty, he attaches a safety tether and hops along the hull, managing to grab the cylinder at the last moment. Back on board, he ponders for a long time how to open it until he figures out to simply turn the lid. Grace places the cylinder in an airtight chamber where he examines its contents through protective gloves. Inside is a mysterious structure that unfolds into something resembling a bold, dystrophic hedgehog. The Earthling realizes it's a model of a space map. His interlocutor indicates that when He arrived from the constellation 40 Eridani. By activating gravity using a centrifuge, Grace in response welds Earth's coordinates onto the model with a plaque, so that absolutely everyone understands. He manually throws the capsule back. Shortly after, the alien sends a new package with an exact model of his vacuum vessel. Then the alien proceeds to the next step, extending alien tentacles from his ship to the airlock of the Ave Maria. A framework of the future tunnel forms on them, which is quickly covered with walls, creating a sealed corridor. Donning a spacesuit, Grace heads to the alien ship, not knowing whom she will meet: xenomorphs, Yautja, or even worse, bloodthirsty Ewoks. Near the porthole, he taps his fingers to attract attention. In response, the alien taps with its paw from the other side, not risking showing itself entirely. The stranger shows the guest models of the Ave Maria and the human, then hints that it's time to return. No need to ruin the first contact with persistence.
See you soon, then. See you.
Disconnecting the passage, the alien ship rotates around its axis. Grace also activates gravity on the Ave Maria, then prepares to meet the guest. Grace goes to the airlock, where there is now more transparent glass. Behind it, he sees the interlocutor, resembling a stone-hardened roly-poly with limbs. They exchange gestures, after which the scientist names the alien species Eridians, and specifically this individual he names Rocky, as it visually resembles a mobile pile of rocks. Rocky gestures to show that he has prepared another package for the guest. In the cylinder, Grace finds 2 ovals, each with 8 spheres, a hint at oxygen in Mendeleev's periodic table. The man understands that the alien has created a suitable atmosphere for him, and decides to take the risk by removing his helmet. Rocky wasn't lying. He can breathe in the passage. The scientist and the alien are trying to establish communication. Grace understands that the interlocutor lacks visual organs. He perceives the world around him using echolocation, like bats or Marvel's Daredevil. But Rocky can speak, so the Earthling uses a microphone, computer, and decoder to set up a translator, personally inputting meanings for each word spoken by the alien. Establishing communication, they discover that they arrived at Tau Ceti with the same goal. Rocky, like Grace, is the last of his crew, with the only difference being that he lost more than 20 of his kin. The alien himself is a mechanic by profession, but he is curious why humans sent a teacher into space. Grace doesn't remember, but once, when they lay down to sleep near the partition, he had a dream about the past. On Earth, Grace was not a candidate. Other people embarked on the one-way journey, planning to inject themselves with lethal doses upon its completion. Upon awakening, the teacher is troubled by questions about why he is here if he did not intend to fly. Rocky's visit distracts him from his thoughts. The brother in mind has constructed a suit in the form of a sphere from solid xenon, called xenonite by the Earthling. In it, he can move around the Hail Mary so that the work of saving the world proceeds more efficiently. They need to work together. With Grace's help and a plate of xenonite, Rocky is building a larger laboratory for himself on the Earth ship. However, the person is burdened by such proximity. With high sensitivity to vibrations, Rocky hears all his words, even when he records a message home. Nevertheless, together, they develop a plan to fly closer to the planet Tau Ceti, take samples of the local astrophages, and study them to understand why they do not consume the local sun. After detaching the Hail Mary from Rocky's ship, the newly formed partners race towards the planet. Along the way, they get to know each other better by exchanging cultural codes, which includes watching the movie Rocky. Reaching the planet's orbit, Grace goes into open space to collect samples in a special trap. Studying them aboard the Hail Mary, the scientist comes to a shocking conclusion. They are not single-celled astrophages, but slightly more complex organisms that feed on astrophages. That is why the local star does not extinguish. The life discovered on the planet simply devours all the parasites, preventing them from harming the star.
Life on Adrian kills the astrophages.
The partners call this form of life Tomziabs, realizing that this is the solution to their problem. Rocky suggests making a large trap using chains of xenonite, lowering it into the planet's atmosphere, and catching enough Tomziabs to breed them on nutrient farms. Then they will be able to bring them home to eliminate the threat. During the discussion of the plan, Rocky learns that Grace will not return home. He does not have enough fuel. The Eridian offers to share his astrophages. He has plenty of them on his ship. Touched by the upcoming 7th episode. That is, a person embraces the sphere spacesuit of a spider-like roly-poly with new hope. When Rocky constructed the suitable device, Grace sends the ship into low orbit. Then the person goes outside to conduct a space fishing session from the outer hull. He lowers the trap closer to the planet's atmosphere. However, when the man, having raised the trap, attached it to his tether, he is knocked out by an antenna torn off by atmospheric resistance. Rocky advises his awakened comrade to return to the ship and try again later, but the teacher disagrees. He jumps down after the catch, using a piece of the antenna as a counterweight. Grace returns on board. There he tries to stabilize the descending ship, but due to friction with the atmosphere, the hull is damaged. This leads to a hole in the fuel tank. The fuel leak spins the ship, creating gravity. Grace is pinned to the control panel by the chair. With his last bit of strength, he jettisons the damaged segment of the tank but doesn't manage to normalize gravity and loses consciousness. Realizing that the fate of the mission hangs by a thread, Rocky climbs out of the protective dome into the poisonous atmosphere of Ave Maria and drags the unconscious Grace to the medical bay, risking death in the process. While unconscious, the teacher recalls the past. During a test launch of the rocket using astrophage fuel, an explosion occurred. The first crew perished and a replacement was urgently sought. However, while there were no issues with finding astronauts, specialists in astrophages could be counted on the fingers of a ninja turtle. Eva Stratt offers Grace to take this honorable position, but he politely refuses. He is a teacher, not a suicide hero. Then he is forcibly put into a medically induced coma to be loaded onto the starship and sent on a one-way mission. Waking up in the medical bay, the scientist sees burn marks on the floor left by the one harmed in Rocky's poisonous atmosphere. Following them, he finds his comrade. He had enough strength to return to his own dome, leaving a message asking to save Earth and Eridani. Grace waits for his comrade to regain consciousness, not knowing if he will recover from his injuries at all. To make the waiting useful, the man studies the obtained samples of Tomib. He manages to establish their reproduction and also selectively breeds samples capable of surviving on Venus and that planet in the rocky system where the astrophages reproduce. When the Iridian regains consciousness, the Earthling shares the good news with him. They celebrate the victory, understanding that soon they will have to part forever. The Hail Mary returns to Rocky's ship, where it generously receives fuel for the journey back to Earth. The space friends say their final goodbyes in the tunnel, after which they part ways forever. The Ave Maria sets on a return course. The flight to Earth will take a little over 4 years, but Grace's calm is interrupted by an alarm signal. The laboratory's sterility has been compromised. Suspecting a leak of alien creatures, the scientist conducts a sterilization by depressurization, then thoroughly examines the room. He realizes that the Talmebas have seeped through the xenonite from which Rocky made the flasks. Grace manages to isolate them with earth polyethylene, but now a moral and ethical dilemma arises. The thing is, Rocky's ship is entirely made of xenonite. His colony of Tomibs will reach the fuel tanks and consume all the astrophages, leaving the alien stranded in the void. Grace can help him by directing the Hail Mary to intercept, but then he won't return home himself. After calculating everything, the man loads the probes, named after members of the Beatles, with the collected data and sends them home to Earth. He himself hurries to help his friend. Having reached Rocky's ship, Grace climbs into the abandoned airlock. He taps on the glass until his faithful companion appears from the darkness. On Earth, experiencing climate difficulties due to the cooling sun, Eva receives a message from Grace, samples of Tomeb, and instructions on what to do with them. Thanks to the colony of space bacteria Tomeb, which absorbed the star-eating astrophages, the sun shone brightly again. Grace wakes up in a house on Rocky's planet, where the grateful Iridians have set up a special climate zone for him. The partner in an improved xenonite spacesuit visits an old friend. Rocky says that local scientists have prepared the Hail Mary for the journey home, but Grace asks for time to think about whether he wants to return to Earth. The man goes to a cave by the sea, where he begins a lesson for young Iridians, who can honestly say that their teacher came from another planet.
The film ends here.